family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who stays when everyone else walks away. But what happens when 15 years of sacrifice gets repaid with betrayal? My name is Linda, and life hasn't always been kind to me. At 28, I married my high school sweetheart, David. We dreamed of a big family, a cozy house, and growing old together. But cancer stole those dreams. David fought hard for 2 years, but the disease won. By the time I was 30, I was a widow, drowning in medical bills and grief. I threw myself into my nursing job, working long shifts at the hospital, caring for others to forget my own pain. Every day felt like climbing a mountain with no summit in sight. Then I met Robert. It was a quiet evening at the hospital. I was checking charts when a patient's brother spilled coffee on my scrubs. He apologized 100 times, his warm brown eyes full of sincerity. That was Robert. He was visiting his sister, who was recovering from surgery. We started talking, and for the first time in years, I laughed. He was a widower too, raising his 2 teenagers, Alicia and Thomas, alone. His kindness felt like a lifeline. I was scared to open my heart again, but Robert was patient. One night over diner coffee, he looked at me and said, "We all have scars, but that doesn't mean we can't build something beautiful together." 8 months later, we were married. Blending families wasn't easy. I met Alicia, 16, and Thomas, 14, at a tense dinner in Robert's home. The table was set with my best effort: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, even homemade pie. Alicia stared at her plate, not making eye contact. Thomas called me Linda with a sharp edge, like the word itself was an insult. I smiled through it, hoping time would soften them. Robert squeezed my hand under the table, whispering, "They'll come around." I wanted to believe him. We moved into Robert's house, a modest 2-story he'd bought with his ex-wife years before. It had creaky floors, a small backyard, and photos of Alicia and Thomas everywhere. I didn't change much, respecting their space. I hung my clothes in half the closet, kept my books on a single shelf, and tried to make the house feel like home without erasing their past. I cooked meals they wouldn't eat, offered to help with homework they ignored, and stayed up late wondering if I was failing. But I loved Robert, and I was determined to love his kids too, even if they didn't want me. Marriage brought its own challenges. Robert owned a small construction company, but work slowed down. The 2008 recession hit hard and jobs dried up. I noticed the worry in his eyes, the way he stayed up late with calculators and bills. I kept my own finances steady, saving every penny from my nursing shifts. I'd learned to budget after David's illness, and that habit never left me. I paid our utilities, bought groceries, and never complained. Robert didn't know how to ask for help, but I could see he was struggling. One night, everything changed. I found Robert at the kitchen table, head in his hands, papers scattered around him. He looked up, eyes red, and confessed his business was failing. "I'm letting everyone down," he said, voice breaking. "My kids, you, this house, I can't lose it all." I sat beside him, my hand on his. He admitted the mortgage was behind, and foreclosure was a real threat. I didn't hesitate. I had a small life insurance payout from David, tucked away for emergencies. It wasn't much, but it was enough to catch up on payments. "We're in this together," I told him. He nodded, tears falling. We agreed not to tell Alicia and Thomas. They were kids, and he didn't want them to worry. From that night on, I took on the mortgage. Month after month, I worked overtime, quietly keeping our home safe. Robert's business limped along, and I covered what he couldn't. I never told the kids about the sacrifices, the extra shifts, the money that kept their world stable. To them, I was just their dad's new wife, an outsider who didn't belong. Do you remember a time when you had to start over completely? How did you find the strength to rebuild? Or what would you sacrifice for someone you love, even if their children treated you like an unwanted guest? I kept going, hoping one day they'd see me as family. But I never imagined how far they'd go to push me out. Alicia and Thomas were never just Robert's kids to me, they were my chance to build a family. But for 15 years, they made sure I knew I wasn't welcome. Now at 31, Alicia was a marketing executive, sharp and polished, with a perfectionist streak that showed in everything she did. When she visited the house, she brought framed photos of her biological parents, setting them on the mantel like a reminder of the family she believed I'd disrupted. Her mother, who'd left when Alicia was young, was still her hero, untouchable in memory. Alicia's visits were rare, but each one felt like a performance. She'd hug her dad, chat about her latest promotion, and barely glance my way. Thomas, 29, was different, but no warmer. He'd followed his father into construction and built a thriving business, outshining Robert's struggles. Competitive and proud, he loved showing off his new truck or his latest project. He was engaged to Lauren, a woman who fed his resentment toward me. I overheard her once at a family barbecue whispering, "Why is she still here? This is your dad's house." Thomas nodded, his jaw tight. To them, I was an outsider who'd slipped into their father's life and never belonged. Their rejection wasn't loud, it was cold, calculated, and constant. When Alicia graduated college, she planned a big celebration and invited everyone but me. I found out when Robert came home with a program apologizing softly. "She didn't mean it," he said. Thomas was no better. Last year, when he got engaged, he forgot to include me in the party planning. I learned about the event from a neighbor who assumed I'd be there. I smiled through the hurt, telling myself they were still young, still healing from their parents' divorce. Robert saw it all but never stepped in. "They're still hurting from the divorce," he'd say, his voice gentle but firm. "Just give them time." On our 10th anniversary, as we sat over candlelit dinner, he repeated it for what felt like the 100th time. I nodded, swallowing my pain. I loved him too much to push back, and I didn't want to make him choose between me and his kids. So I stayed quiet, hoping he was right. But I wasn't weak. While Alicia and Thomas pushed me away, I kept our family afloat. When Robert's business hit rough patches, I worked extra shifts at the hospital, my feet aching from 12-hour days. I used my savings, money I'd scraped together after David's death, to cover bills, property taxes, even a second mortgage Robert didn't know how to pay. I never told the kids. They didn't need to know their childhood home was at risk or that I was the one saving it. To them, I was just Linda, the woman who cooked dinners they wouldn't eat and bought gifts they'd return. One moment broke me more than the rest. It was Thomas's 25th birthday. I'd spent days picking out a card, writing a heartfelt note, and tucking a gift card inside for his favorite restaurant. I left it on the kitchen counter, hoping he'd open it when he stopped by. That evening, I found it in the trash, still in its envelope, unopened. My heart sank. I stood there staring at the crumpled card, knowing I'd paid the property tax bill that same day to keep a lien off the house. The house they called theirs. Still, I didn't give up. My nursing job gave me purpose, helping patients, holding hands through pain, being there when no one else was. It reminded me I was more than a rejected stepmother. Robert was my anchor, too. At night, whispering, "You're my rock." I accepted that Alicia and Thomas might never see me as family. I found strength in small victories, a patient's thank you, a night laughing with Robert, a home still standing because of me. Their betrayal built slowly, but it was always there, waiting. I kept loving, kept sacrificing, kept hoping. I didn't know then that they'd try to take everything from me, or that I'd be ready to fight back. Have you ever continued to help someone who couldn't see or appreciate what you were doing for them? At what point does patience become self-harm? Or would you tell your partner if their children's behavior was breaking your heart? Or would you stay silent to keep the peace? I chose silence for 15 years, but that was about to change. Robert's death came like a thief. One Tuesday morning, I was charting at the hospital when my phone rang. It was Mike, one of Robert's employees, his voice shaking. "It's Robert. He collapsed at the site. Ambulance is on the way." I dropped everything and drove to the hospital, my heart pounding. I prayed the whole way, begging for him to be okay. But when I got there, a doctor met me in the hallway, her face grim. Heart attack. Massive. He was gone before they could save him. I stood frozen, the world blurring around me. My Robert, my anchor, was gone. Grief hit like a physical blow. Planning his funeral felt unreal. Picking a casket, choosing flowers, writing an obituary while my chest ached like it was caving in. The house was unbearable without him. His work boots sat by the door, his jacket hung on the chair. Every corner held his absence. I'd wake up reaching for him only to find cold sheets. My body hurt, my throat raw from crying, my stomach knotted so tight I couldn't eat. I was drowning, and there was no one to pull me out. At the funeral, I stood alone. Alicia and Thomas were surrounded by friends and family, accepting hugs and condolences. I clutched a tissue, staring at Robert's photo on the altar, feeling like an outsider. I overheard someone whisper, "That's Robert's second wife," not even using my name. It stung, but I was too broken to care. Alicia and Thomas barely looked at me. They didn't need me. They had each other, their mother's family, their own world. I was just the woman who'd loved their father. After the funeral, they vanished. They stopped coming to the house, leaving Grok 3 leaves a space here for some reason, avoided calling. They sent texts about practical matters, the will, the estate, but nothing personal. I sorted through Robert's things alone, boxing up his clothes, his tools, his life. One night, I overheard Thomas on the phone outside. "Once we figure out the will situation, we can finally get rid of her and move on," he said, not knowing I was in the kitchen. His words cut deeper than anything yet. I was something to get rid of, like garbage. Then, out of nowhere, Alicia called. "We should have dinner," she said, "to talk about the future as a family." Her voice was polite, almost warm. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe Robert's death had changed something. Maybe they were ready to heal. I agreed, picking a quiet Italian restaurant we used to go to with Robert. I wore my best dress, hoping for a new start. The restaurant was cozy, with soft lighting and the smell of garlic bread. We sat at a round table, and the small talk was awkward but civil. Work, weather, memories of Robert. I started to relax, thinking this was it, the moment we'd connect. Then Alicia reached into her purse and slid an envelope across the table. "We need to talk about the house," she said, her voice flat. I opened it, confused, and saw the words, "eviction notice" in bold. My stomach dropped. "Dad would want his children to have the family home," Alicia said coldly. "You were just passing through our lives." Thomas nodded, his face hard. "It's what's fair," he added. 30 days is generous." I couldn't speak. My ears rang, and a bitter taste filled my mouth. My hands shook as I stared at the papers. 15 years of love, sacrifice saving their home, and they saw me as nothing. A temporary guest in their father's life. The betrayal wasn't just rejection, it was erasure. I sat there numb, as they listed reasons I didn't deserve to stay. My heart raced, but my body felt heavy, like I was sinking. They didn't know I'd paid the mortgage, the taxes, the loans. They didn't know I'd kept their world from collapsing. And they didn't care. I was alone, grieving, and now homeless in their eyes. What would hurt more, losing your partner or discovering his children see you as nothing after 15 years of marriage? Have you ever been blindsided by someone's true colors when you were at your most vulnerable? How did you respond? I didn't know what to do, but I knew I couldn't let them erase me. The drive home from the restaurant was a blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white as the eviction papers burned a hole in my purse. Alicia's cold words echoed in my head. "You were just passing through our lives." My mind churned with memories of everything I'd given up for that house, the overtime shifts, the sleepless nights, the life insurance money from David that I'd poured into their home to save it from foreclosure. For 15 years, I'd carried their family, and now they wanted to throw me out like I was nothing. The betrayal stung, but something deeper was rising. a fire I hadn't felt before. I pulled into the driveway and sat there, staring at the house. Its familiar outline, white siding, the porch light Robert always forgot to turn off, felt like a stranger now. This was the home I'd saved when Robert's business collapsed, the one I'd kept standing through every financial storm. I saw Alicia and Thomas as kids, playing in the yard, never knowing how close they came to losing it all. Something snapped inside me. The grief that had crushed me since Robert's death didn't vanish, but it shifted. The shock was gone, replaced by cold, sharp clarity. I wasn't going to beg for their approval anymore. I wanted justice. Inside, the house was silent. I poured a glass of water, my hands still shaking, and wandered to the living room. An old photo album sat on the coffee table, one I hadn't touched in years. I flipped it open, landing on a picture from 5 years ago. It was the day I paid off the second mortgage. A weight lifted from our shoulders. Robert had insisted on taking the photo. Me, him, the kids in the background, unaware. His smile was wide, grateful. I could almost hear his voice from that night, when we sat on the couch, my checkbook still open. "What's mine is yours," he'd said, squeezing my hand. "We're a team, forever." I'd used every penny of David's life insurance to keep us afloat, and Robert had promised I'd always have a home here. Now his kids wanted to take that away. I couldn't sit still. It was past midnight, but I climbed the attic stairs, my footsteps heavy. Dust covered the boxes in the corner, financial records I'd kept for years. I dragged them to the floor, ripping them open. Piles grew around me. Mortgage payment receipts with my name, property tax bills I'd settled, loan documents for the kitchen remodel I'd funded. Every piece was proof of what I'd done. My nursing checks, my savings, my sacrifice. It was all there in black and white. I worked until dawn, my anger sharpening with every document. I wasn't just the stepmother they ignored. I was the one who'd held their world together. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I called Melissa, my friend and a lawyer, even though it was barely 6 a.m. My voice broke as I told her everything. The dinner, the eviction papers, the years of rejection. "They think I'm nothing," I said, tears falling. "But I paid for that house. I saved it." Melissa listened, then her voice turned fierce. "They have no idea who they're dealing with, do they? You've been Atlas holding up their world while they walked all over you." She confirmed I had legal standing. The receipts, the bank statements, my contributions gave me a claim. "We'll fight this," she said. "But more than that, we'll make them see who you are." Sitting there, phone still in hand, I felt different. I wasn't the stepmother who cooked meals they wouldn't eat or bought gifts they'd throw away. I was Linda, the woman who'd rebuilt her life after loss, who'd loved Robert fiercely, who'd carried a family that never wanted her. Grief still ached in my chest, but now it fueled me. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to show Alicia and Thomas exactly what I'd done for them. They'd learn the truth, not to hurt them, but to make them understand what family really meant. What would you do if you discovered your kindness had been mistaken for weakness for 15 years? Have you ever reached a breaking point where you decided it was finally time to stand up for yourself no matter the consequences? I'd spent years being patient, but now I was ready to fight for the home and the life I'd built. The attic had become my war room. For days, I worked with Melissa, my lawyer friend, sorting 15 years of financial records. We spread documents across the dining table, mortgage receipts, bank statements, tax bills, all with my name. Melissa helped me organize them into clear stacks. Payments from 2008 when I saved the house from foreclosure, property taxes I'd covered, loan agreements for the roof repair and kitchen remodel. We created a timeline, a visual chart showing every dollar I'd poured into this home. "This is airtight," Melissa said, her eyes wide. "You didn't just live here, you kept it standing." We met with Daniel, a senior attorney specializing in estate law. His office was small, cluttered with legal books, but his presence was steady. I handed him the binders we'd prepared. He flipped through them, his brow furrowing. "In my 30 years of practice, he said, leaning back. I've rarely seen someone quietly contribute this much without legal protection. But that doesn't mean you don't have options. He explained I could pursue an unjust enrichment claim. My payments and home improvements gave me an equitable interest in the property, even without my name on the deed. It wasn't a guaranteed win, but it was a strong case. I left his office feeling something new. Power. Back home, Melissa and I dug deeper. We found Robert's will in a locked drawer. My heart sank as I read it. He'd named me a beneficiary for some savings, but the house was still in his name alone. We'd talked about updating the deed, but he always said, "There's time." I trusted him. That trust felt like a wound now. Daniel warned that Alicia and Thomas could argue the will gave them the house since it was never legally mine. But he pointed to a loophole. My contributions weren't just gifts. They were investments in a shared life. The law could recognize that. I threw myself into research. Nights blurred as I read case studies on property disputes, learning terms like equitable interest and constructive trust. I took notes, highlighted legal texts, and cross-referenced my records. I wasn't a lawyer, but I was a nurse. I knew how to be methodical, how to solve problems under pressure. Melissa guided me, but I was preparing to stand for myself if it came to that. I wasn't just fighting for the house, I was fighting for the truth to be seen. Then I found something that broke me all over again. In Robert's desk, tucked in a folder of old bills, was a half-written note in his handwriting. "To my Linda," it began. "I've been meaning to fix the deed. You've given us everything: home, love, stability. I want you secure forever." It stopped mid-sentence, unfinished. My eyes stung. He'd meant to protect me, but his sudden death stole that chance. It wasn't just an oversight. It was a betrayal, unintentional, but real. I loved him, but he'd left me vulnerable. That hurt almost as much as Alicia and Thomas's actions. The pain didn't stop me. It fueled me. I wasn't the stepmother who'd begged for their love anymore. I was a woman who'd rebuilt her life after loss, who'd carried a family through crisis. My nursing career had taught me to stay calm, to act when others panicked. Now, I was applying that to my fight. I stood taller, spoke clearer. Melissa noticed it. "You're not just ready," she said. "You're formidable." We finalized my response to the eviction notice. I filed a formal claim asserting my equitable interest in the property, backed by every receipt and record. Daniel reviewed it, nodding. "This will shake them," he said. I wanted it delivered with weight. We hired a professional courier to serve the papers to Alicia and Thomas on the same day. One to Alicia's sleek condo, one to Thomas's construction office. I pictured their faces as they opened the envelopes, seeing my name on a legal claim for their house. This wasn't revenge. It was accountability. As the courier left, I sat in the kitchen, the weight of 15 years settling around me. I'd been their silent savior, but no more. They'd learn exactly what I'd done, not to hurt them, but to show them who I was. The woman they'd dismissed had built their world, and I wasn't going anywhere. Have you ever discovered hidden strength in yourself during a crisis that you never knew you possessed? What would you do if you found out someone you loved failed to legally protect you, even as you protected their family financially for years? I was done being invisible. It was time for the truth to speak. I didn't want this fight in our kitchen, where emotions could cloud the truth. I asked Melissa to arrange a formal meeting at her law office, a sleek, neutral space with a long conference table and walls of frosted glass. The professional setting felt like armor, amplifying the strength I'd found. Alicia and Thomas agreed to come, probably thinking they'd steamroll me. I was ready to show them they were wrong. They arrived together, confident, almost smug. Alicia, in a tailored blazer, carried a leather notebook, her posture perfect. Thomas, in a pressed shirt, checked his watch every few minutes, as if I were wasting his time. They sat across from me, expecting the same quiet Linda who'd taken their rejection for years. Melissa sat beside me, her expression calm but sharp. A projector hummed in the corner, ready to display the truth. I started without preamble. "For 15 years I've been part of this family," I said, my voice steady. "You've made it clear I wasn't wanted. But you don't know what I've done for you." I nodded to Melissa, who clicked the projector on. A graph appeared showing mortgage payments from 2008 to 2023. My contributions were in blue, Robert's in gray. During the recession, when his business tanked, my blue bars towered over his. Their eyes flicked to the screen, Alicia's pen pausing mid-note. I laid out the evidence year by year. Bank statements flashed up showing the life insurance money from my first husband, David, transferred directly to the mortgage company in 2008 to stop foreclosure. "While you were in college complaining about my Christmas gifts," I said, looking at Alicia, "I was working double shifts to pay the property taxes on the home you're now trying to take from me." Her face tightened, but she said nothing. Next came the second mortgage payoff, a document with my name as the sole payer. Alicia's breath caught, the color draining from her face. She stared at the screen, her perfect composure cracking. Thomas shifted in his seat, his jaw tight. I kept going. Renovation receipts for the kitchen, the roof, the backyard deck, all funded by my savings. Loan agreements where I'd signed as guarantor when Robert's credit wasn't enough. Each document was a brick in the wall of truth I was building. Thomas snapped first. "This is manipulation," he said, his voice loud. "You're twisting things to make us look bad." I didn't flinch. I slid a folder across the table. Copies of every receipt, every payment, every loan. "Read them," I said. "My signature's on everyone." He opened the folder, then shut it, his hands shaking. He had no answer. I took a breath, years of hurt rising. "I never asked for your love," I said, my voice low but clear. "But I deserved your respect. I kept this family financially whole while being treated like an outsider." My eyes moved from Alicia to Thomas. "You threw my birthday cards in the trash, ignored me at your graduations, and now you think you can erase me from this house. But I'm the reason it's still yours." I pulled out Robert's half-written note, the one I'd found in his desk. I read it aloud. "To my Linda, I've been meaning to fix the deed. You've given us everything. Home, love, stability." My voice wavered but didn't break. He wanted me secure. He didn't have time to finish this before he died, but he knew what I'd done. Alicia's eyes glistened and she looked away. Thomas stared at the table. I leaned forward, my strength unshaken. "You have two choices," I said. "We can fight this in court. Every document, every payment will be public. Your friends, your colleagues will know you tried to evict the woman who saved your childhood home. Or we can settle fairly. I'm not asking for the whole house, just what I've earned, a share that reflects my contributions." I paused, letting the weight settle. "Choose." They sat in silence, the projector's hum the only sound. Alicia's hands twisted in her lap, her confidence gone. Thomas's face was red, but he didn't argue. I stood, gathering my papers. "Think it over," I said. "Melissa will be in touch." I walked out, my head high, feeling the power of being seen after years of invisibility. Have you ever had to show someone undeniable evidence of your worth? How did it feel to finally be seen after being invisible for so long? What would you say to someone who had misjudged and mistreated you for years once you had the upper hand? I'd spent 15 years in the shadows, but now the truth was out, and I wasn't backing down. The meeting ended in silence. Alicia and Thomas sat frozen as I walked out of Melissa's law office. They didn't look at me, didn't speak. Alicia clutched her notebook, her knuckles white. Thomas stared at the table, his earlier confidence gone. They grabbed their things and left quickly, their footsteps echoing in the hall. I stood by the window, watching their car pull away, feeling both powerful and empty. I'd shown them the truth, but what came next was out of my hands. Days passed, tense and quiet. I stayed in the house, my home, but sleep wouldn't come. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying their faces when they saw the evidence. My legal claim was strong. Melissa and Daniel assured me of that. But the waiting gnawed at me. I cooked meals I barely ate, watered the plants, and kept the house tidy, as if normal routines could anchor me. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump, expecting a knock at the door or another legal envelope. Then, a week later, my phone buzzed. A text from Alicia. "Can we meet? Just us, no lawyers. Coffee tomorrow?" My heart raced. It was the first crack in their united front, but I didn't trust it. Still, I agreed, choosing a small coffee shop nearby, a neutral place with wooden tables and the smell of fresh pastries. I arrived early, my hands wrapped around a mug, bracing myself. Alicia walked in, her usual polish replaced by red-rimmed eyes and a plain sweater. She sat across from me, fidgeting with her napkin. "I didn't know," she said finally, her voice breaking. "All those years, the house, the money. I had no idea." Tears spilled and she didn't wipe them away. "Mom, our real mom, told us you were temporary, that you'd never replace her. She said we should keep you out. We listened to her." She looked down. "We were so busy holding on to who we lost that we couldn't see who was actually there for us." Her words hit hard. I'd spent years blaming myself for their coldness. But it wasn't just them. It was their mother's shadow. I nodded, my throat tight. "I tried to love you," I said. "I didn't need you to call me Mom, but I wanted to be family." She reached for my hand, then stopped, unsure. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. Thomas took longer. 2 days later, he showed up at the house unannounced, carrying a folder. He stood in the doorway, awkward. "I went through Dad's old business records," he said, avoiding my eyes. "I thought I knew how bad things got, but I didn't. He never told us how much you covered." He handed me the folder, ledgers showing Robert's debts, gaps I'd filled. "I was wrong," he mumbled. It wasn't an apology, but it was close. We negotiated over the next week with Melissa mediating. I wanted the house, my home, but I wasn't heartless. I wasn't. Thomas had a construction project Robert had promised to fund, a community center he was passionate about. I offered a compromise. I'd keep the house, but I'd provide financial support to finish the project, using savings I'd set aside. They agreed, reluctantly at first, but the deal was fair. Melissa drafted a settlement document, clear and binding. I'd stay in the home for my lifetime, with the property passing to Alicia and Thomas after. My contributions were acknowledged in black and white, no more erasure. Our relationship didn't heal overnight. Trust was a long road. Alicia started texting, small things at first, asking about a recipe, sharing a memory of Robert. Thomas was quieter, but he'd nod when he saw me, a grudging respect replacing his old disdain. It wasn't love, but it was honest, built on truth instead of obligation. I kept my boundaries, accepting their steps without rushing to embrace them. I'd been hurt too long to leap back in. One evening, Alicia came over, hesitant. "Do you have any old photos of Dad?" she asked. I pulled out the albums, and we sat on the couch, flipping through memories. She paused at a picture of Robert and me laughing at a barbecue. "He looks so happy," she said softly, her voice catching. For the first time, she saw her father's joy in his second marriage, not just her own loss. I swallowed hard, nodding. It was a quiet moment, but it mattered. I'd found justice, but this glimpse of understanding, was closure. I wasn't the stepmother begging for scraps anymore. I was Linda, who'd stood her ground and rebuilt on her terms. Can relationships heal after such profound betrayal, or are some bridges permanently burned once crossed? Is justice alone enough? Or does true closure require understanding from those who wronged you? I'd fought for my place. And now, slowly, we were finding a new way forward. It's been a year since the confrontation, and I'm sitting on the porch of my home, a cup of tea in hand, watching the sunset. This house is mine now, legally, emotionally, fully. I've made it my own, no longer a guest in someone else's story. The living room has new curtains, bright blue, my favorite color. I painted the kitchen walls a warm yellow, hung my own photos, me with friends, me with Robert, me alone, smiling. For the first time, I feel like I belong here. I think about Robert every day. I love him still, but there's a quiet disappointment too. He called me his rock, but he didn't protect me the way I needed. His unfinished note, his failure to update the deed, it left me vulnerable. I've made peace with it mostly. He wasn't perfect, but he was mine. And we built something real. That's enough. Alicia and Thomas aren't the family I dreamed of, but we've found a fragile peace. We have dinners sometimes, awkward but civil. They ask about my work. I ask about their lives. It's not love, but it's respect, and that's a start. Last month, Thomas stopped by to fix a leaky faucet. As he packed his tools, he said, "Dad would be proud of how you fought for yourself. He always said you were stronger than any of us knew." His words caught me off guard. A small bridge between us. Fighting for this house changed me. At work, I used to stay in the background, just doing my job. But standing up to Alicia and Thomas lit something in me. I applied for a leadership role at the hospital, training new nurses. I got it, and now I'm shaping the team, speaking up in meetings, trusting my voice. I'm not just a nurse anymore. I'm a leader. I wanted to honor Robert in my own way, not just as his widow. I set up a scholarship in his name at the local community college for construction students. It's small, funded by my savings, but it's growing. It feels right, tying his passion to my legacy. It's not about erasing the past. It's about claiming my place in it. A few weeks ago, I did something hard. I wrote letters to Alicia and Thomas. I poured out everything. My hurt from their rejection, my hope for a better future, my understanding of their grief over their mom and dad. But I was clear. I expect respect going forward. I mailed the letters, my hands shaking. They haven't responded yet, but I said what I needed to. That's enough for now. Today's our anniversary, and I visited Robert's grave this morning. I sat by his headstone, the grass soft under me, and told him everything. The fight, the settlement, the scholarship. I swear I felt him there, his warmth in the breeze. Back home, I walked through the house, touching the walls I saved, the life I claimed. He's still here, in every creak of the floor, every memory we made. Sometimes the family we hope for isn't the family we get. But fighting for my place in this home wasn't just about the money or the property. It was about claiming the value of my own life. In the end, I didn't just save a house. I saved myself. What would you fight hardest to protect? Your dignity, your security, or your peace of mind? Have you ever had to redefine your idea of family after disappointment? How did you create meaning from that experience? I found my strength, my home, and my truth. That's the family I carry now,